And we're back like we never left. Oregon fans, what's going on? How we living? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. I'm your host, Max Torres, publisher and lead editor of Ducks Digest, covering the Oregon Ducks over on Fan Nation, part of the Sports Illustrated Network. Glad to have you guys along today. It is Saturday, June 24th, 2023. We are in the midst of the biggest recruiting weekend of the month for Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks. So much talent is on campus in Eugene right now. You know, getting tours of Autzen, of the Hatfield-Dowling complex, getting, photo shoots, getting to sit in on player meetings, whatever it is a huge weekend for the Ducks with regard to the 2024 recruiting class. Even have some big 2025 recruits on campus for the Ducks. I won't get too much into that today with regard to 2025 guys, but we're going to be doing a little bit of Oregon recruiting hour on today's episode of the pod. Maybe going to be going about an hour. I don't see myself going longer than that, so just wanted to let you guys know. If you're watching here on YouTube, we're live on YouTube at Oregon Football Max Torres, and we are on Twitter as well at M Torres Sports. Go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And then, like I said, we're going to be doing a little bit of mailbag today, so go ahead and pop a question into the live chat if you guys are wanting to know anything about Oregon football recruiting or Oregon football. I haven't done a live stream in quite a while, so I love interacting with you guys. And I have a couple of things I want to hit on before we get to the mailbag. But go ahead, get those questions in, get those comments in. Maybe let me know where you're listening from if you guys have been listening for a while. I've been on the road all week, so I haven't been able to do too many podcasts, but I really, really love podcasts. So excited to be back with you guys today. I did have one comment from yesterday's show that I wanted to address. It was kind of funny, and I just want to throw it out in a lighthearted way. If you guys have been listening to me for a while, I don't know what happened. I think I must have knocked my mic or something, but I think I messed it up somewhat long term. It's basically it's sitting here right next to me. You can't see it because I don't want it to be in the shot. But the mic hasn't been super consistent, and the question was, do you have a link or anything where we can donate to help you get a mic? I don't have anything like that, like a Cash App, but for live streams, you can do super chats. So, if you want to support the channel and if you're a fan of my work over on Ducks Digest or here on the Ducks Dish podcast, feel free to, consider doing a super chat. You can find that in the bottom right-hand corner by the live chat. But just wanted to throw that out there. Greatly appreciate all the support you guys give me just tuning into the show. So I'm going to start today's episode of the pod off with my most recent prediction. I did log a new prediction for Oregon in the 2024 recruiting class, and that is, drumroll, Elijah Rushing, 2024 edge rusher out of Phoenix, Arizona, Sal Point Catholic. Elijah Rushing has really been one of the top targets for Dan Lanning since he got to Oregon. I think the way that I see it, Dan Lanning got hired. They got the 2022 class under their belt, 2023 class under their belt. But when you're looking for difference makers, guys that can really take your program, I should say, we're a program podcast, to the next level, you're looking at those guys at the line of scrimmage, at least with regard to Oregon. I think that's where they've been having good players come through, but they need to have more great players come through and then, help them win conference titles, help them get back to the playoff and ultimately get to the back to the playoff. So Elijah Rushing is a huge priority for Dan Lanning in this class. And I think what happened when he got hired, when they were looking at the 2024 class, you're looking at all the top edge rusher targets that Oregon has offered here in the 2024 class. And there are some really good edge rushers in the 24 class, but you have to look at geography, which guys are, in your backyard, and, consequentially, which guys do you kind of already have a better shot with off the bat. And I think that Elijah Rushing is one of those guys, right? He's the top edge rusher, number 3 edge rusher in the country, according to the 247 Sports composite rankings. And behind only Colin Simmons out of Duncanville, who was on campus in Eugene this past weekend from the state of Texas. But Elijah Rushing, number 3 at his position as an edge rusher, according to the 247 composite, and then number 1 edge rusher in the country if you're just looking at 247. So this is a special talent, 6'6", 235 pounds, just an absolute freak-ish talent off the edge. So what I like to do is, I log my pick, and then if you guys read me, you can read the whole thing over on Ducks Digest if you want. I think it's the top story right now. What I like to do is have, the blurb, and then, say, hey, I'm making this prediction. This is my confidence level. And then I'm explaining the pick, because I want to try to, set myself apart and, show that I'm doing this thing the best that I can by explaining why I'm making these picks. I don't want it to just be something that I, a pick that I just help out there and, just, join the hype. But with Elijah Rushing, one of those reasons is priority targets. And then another one is the longevity. I think that he's been at the top of Oregon's board for so long in this 2024 recruiting class that I just find it hard I don't think any other school is going to be able to match the sheer volume of trips that Elijah Rushing has taken to Oregon to see the Ducks. He just took his official visit this past week. And all the buzz that I was able to hear about that visit was pretty positive. And now he's heading into his final official visit, what I think is going to be his final official visit with the Tennessee Volunteers. And he's working from a top 12 right now. That's kind of the group that he released back in November. But, basically what I'm able to gather, what I'm hearing, I think this is looking like it's kind of whittled down to 3 teams. And which teams are those? You're looking at Oregon. Oregon's been a long-time front runner for Elijah Rushing. And then you also have Arizona, Jed Fish and the in-state Wildcats. And then you also have the Tennessee Volunteers, and they're getting that final official visit. But I think that Tennessee, I kind of see Tennessee as, that's a big school. They've definitely been recruiting really, really well, in recent years, especially under Josh Heupel. But I kind of see this one coming down to Oregon versus Arizona. So what's the case with Arizona? You kind of have to lay out, make the case for each school with these recruits. And, Arizona is obviously the home state school. I think they're definitely heading in the right direction with Jed Fish. I like how they're leveraging the portal. I like how they're getting some momentum on the recruiting trail. And then one thing that people want to mention when they talk about Elijah Rushing and Arizona is Cruz Rushing, his older brother, who was at one point committed to Oregon as a preferred walk-on. I think he's a defensive back, transferred to Florida, or ended up flipping to Florida. And then he has since transferred back home to Tucson to play for the Arizona Wildcats. So I think that you look at the family connection with Arizona and, just him being from Arizona, I think that that's part of the reason why they have, a little bit of a fighter's chance here in this recruitment. But some of the people that I was talking to, kind of close to this recruitment were telling me that, that family connection doesn't necessarily carry as much weight as, some people might think on the surface. So, when you look at that, I think this kind of comes down to an Oregon-Arizona battle, and I don't think Oregon's going to let themselves lose a battle to Arizona. And then looking deeper on the Oregon side of things, Oregon has definitely ramped up their recruiting efforts in the state of Arizona. And, look at the line of scrimmage, the defensive line. They signed a number of guys from Arizona last year. You have Michael Gardner from Peoria. You also have Amari Washington from Chandler. And then you also have Cole Martin from last year from Basha. Super talented, twitchy corner. Really excited to see what he can do for the Ducks, playing under his dad, Demetrius Martin. So there's been that growing pipeline really since, I'd say, maybe 2019, 2020 for Oregon, when they've been continuing to prioritize the Grand Canyon State, I think it's called. And Rushing is the face of defensive talent from the state of Arizona this cycle. I think offensively, obviously, that's Dylan Raiola, the number 1 player in the country who's committed to Georgia. I got to see him at the Elite 11 last week, and he was definitely a special guy. But Oregon has a lot of talent on the roster just connected to Arizona, and they also have numerous coaches or, recruiting analysts that are on that staff from the state of Arizona. They have Jackson Jones out of Yuma Catholic, who's another edge rusher committed in this 2024 class. So I think that rushing is really that guy that Dan Lanning and Tosh Lupoi know they need to get to try to take this defense to the next level. When I wrote this prediction, I talked about how Kayvon Thibodeau, when he committed to Oregon, he was the number one player in the country. He was a 5-star guy, at least on ESPN. He was the number one guy, consensus top 10 player with rivals in 247. But when he committed to Oregon, like that sent shockwaves throughout the country, because I don't really think that Oregon was used to getting guys like that. They had Canton Kamatule, I think was his last name, the 5-star guy out of Hawaii, but he medically retired, and then he decided to play again at UCF and never really did anything for Oregon. So basically, I think that Elijah Rushing is going to be, the face of how the trench talent is just changing at Oregon, particularly along the defensive line. We've already seen Oregon get elite offensive line talent, which you still need. Elite offensive linemen are very, very important. Do not get me wrong. But where Oregon needs to close the gap, I think, in terms of with them and some of these blue blood programs that are competing for national titles year after year, is at the line of scrimmage. And you do that by getting edge rushers. And, Elijah Rushing's, a freak athlete kind of a guy, super twitchy, he moves really, really well for his size. And, I think you also have the benefit of working with Jordan Burch this year and then kind of maybe trying to see how they can maybe have similar blueprints. With Jordan Burch obviously being much more proven than Rushing is. But I think that just there's been so much momentum for Oregon with regard to Rushing. Every time you're talking about this guy, pretty much any point in the calendar year, I don't really feel like any other team has led or at least been mentioned as strongly as Oregon has. That said, I do think that Notre Dame was a threat at one point, but I think the Irish have kind of faded a little bit in his recruitment. He doesn't have a commitment date set right now, so I did set my confidence rating at or confidence meter at 7 out of 10. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. But maybe we just need to see a little bit more of that timeline and what things are ultimately going to look like. I just don't see how Oregon, how another school can build stronger relationships than Oregon. I know that Dan Lanning and Tosh Lupoi factor is a huge deal in his recruitment for him. Having two guys that specialize at his position. You have Tosh Lupoi, who worked with Myles Garrett. You have Dan Lanning, who played a big role in that Georgia defense from 2021. It wasn't all him, obviously. They have a crazy staff over there at Georgia, but he played a huge role. And then now every member of that 2021 defense from Georgia, all those starters are now on an NFL roster. So I feel like it's kind of going to be hard to quantify, but even though Lanning isn't at Georgia anymore, obviously, he still played a role in that, and he's going to be able to talk to guys like Rushing and say, look what I did with this guy, look what I did with this guy, look what I did with this guy. And, I want to do the same thing for you and get you to be, the face of this defense and get you winning Morris Award trophies like Kayvon Thibodeau did for top lineman in the Pac-12. And then getting out, maybe in 3 years to go first round and make yourself some money in the NFL. So I just think that Oregon has really done a great job in this recruitment. They get him to all the big events, the spring game. He didn't make it for the spring game. They actually rescheduled that visit and they were able to do it during the week. So he's just gotten up there so many times. He's always been their guy when it comes to edge rushers. And the most exciting thing about it is that he may not even be the only top end edge rusher that they sign in this class if he does commit to Oregon, right? We're already framing this and I made that prediction, but Colin Simmons was on campus this week. And then now he's in Texas, in Austin, visiting with Steve Sarkisian and the Longhorns. And I'm seeing that he got some on-3 predictions to Texas. So maybe the Ducks don't have a great shot there, but I told you guys for a while now that it was Oregon, Texas, and LSU in that recruitment for Colin Simmons, if you guys have been following my work for a while. And you also have Jordan Ross, a 5-star edge out of Vestavia Hills in Birmingham, Alabama. He's another big name for sure. He was actually supposed to be on campus earlier this week, but there were some plane troubles, so he wasn't able to ultimately get out to Eugene. I think he's going to try to reschedule that visit, for Saturday Night Live coming up at the end of July. So that's another guy that the Ducks are heavily involved with. Aiden Breland is on campus right now. He's not an edge rusher, but that's the top defensive lineman on the West Coast. So that's another big time talent. And I think that Oregon's just in an awesome spot here with Elijah Rushing, and I'm excited to see what they can do in his recruitment. There's another big guy on campus that I didn't really talk about this weekend as we kind of shift away from my Elijah Rushing prediction and move on to the next segment of the podcast on Oregon Recruiting Hour. Excited to have you guys along. I'm going to be talking about Preston Taumua. He's an interior offensive lineman in the 2024 recruiting class, 6'4", 315 pounds, out of Aiea High School in Aiea, Hawaii. I hope I'm saying that right. But he's an interior offensive lineman. I think he projects to, he has, some tackle film, but he's an interior guy. And I think he's probably one of those leading candidates for Oregon to play center in this 2024 class. He's on campus this weekend for a visit. I believe it's his official visit. And I think that Oregon's in an awesome spot to try to seal the deal here. He's taken a lot of trips this spring and in the summer. Recently made it out to Auburn for a visit. Arizona got a trip as well. He's working from a top 5 of Arizona, Auburn, Alabama, Nebraska, and Oregon. I don't believe he has a commitment date set right now, but there's some reasons that I like Oregon here for Preston Taumua. Definitely need to preface all of this with my guy Blair Angulo. He made a crystal ball prediction for Oregon to get Taumua. I want to say it was about a month ago or so. So I'm not making my prediction on him. I'm just telling you why I think that Oregon's in a good spot here. I think the first thing that really comes down to is Alik Terry. And why would it be Alik Terry? Well, it's because Alik Terry coached offensive line at Hawaii before he took that job with the Minnesota Vikings and before he got back to Oregon. So obviously this is a guy that Alik Terry knows a tremendous deal about, because he's going to know about the top players in Hawaii where he was coaching. And I think that those relationships are obviously going to, come into play here and could give Oregon the fast track to land Taumua. So I think that that's obviously really impressive and encouraging. The other thing with Taumua is that he's not just a Hawaii prospect that has, top Pac-12 offers and, Mountain West offers and some Big 12 offers. No, this is a guy from Hawaii that has SEC offers, and that says something. To be the guy that has, the 6'4", 300+ pound frame. He's got that college ready frame. I really like how he has that lateral agility and can really anchor, at the point of attack. That's what you're going to need when you're going up against some of these massive defensive linemen. Love how he gets his hands on guys. You maybe want to see him finish a little bit more on that rep and get his guy to the ground. But this is a guy that I think has a tremendous amount of upside. He's already got that physical body type that you want in an interior offensive lineman. And then now you want to try to get him to the next level. And I think he's also set up to be in a pretty good situation. If you're just looking at the roster at Oregon right now, you have Marcus Harper II, you have Jackson Powers Johnson as some of your leading center candidates. And I would think that, Jackson Powers Johnson probably has the fast track on that job right now, but it's hard to say. Marcus Harper got banged up in spring ball, so he did miss some time. But all that said, I think, he's not going to be in a position where he has to start right away if he does go to Oregon. Again, no commitment timeline right now for Preston Taumua, but he's a big name visiting along the offensive line for Alik Terry this weekend. And then you also have Jaquan McRoy. He was a guy that I talked about on yesterday's episode of the show when I kind of just previewed Oregon's big recruiting weekend. That was a 2-part podcast. I'll probably do something similar, just chopping this one up for you guys, just, give you more shows to listen to. But Jaquan McRoy is a guy that I predicted to Oregon back in May. And then Steve Wiltfong hopped on board as well. He's one of the best in the business, and he threw his crystal ball prediction in there for Oregon to land Jaquan McRoy out of Pinson, Alabama, Clay Chalkville High School. He's on campus in Eugene this weekend for his official visit. So I think that Oregon is really set up to capitalize in a major way. I think that, this kind of goes into my next topic here that I'm actually really interested to see your guys' opinions on, is just how schools manage. And this is the last topic I'll probably get into, and then I'll get into some comments, get into some questions. So again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but if you guys have some questions or anything you want to run by me, go ahead and throw that in the comments. I'll try to star them and try to get to them as we keep going here. Another interesting thing here is the official visit strategy for some of these schools. I think that most schools have been doing a ton of official visits this weekend, this month. But some schools, I want to say Clemson, I'm not 100% sure, but I think Clemson is one of those schools that doesn't like to have their official visits during the summer. They want to hold those for the fall. And that's a very unique approach, and you can't argue that it's not working with, commitments from Sammy Brown in the 2024 class, top linebacker out of the state of Georgia. Bryant Wisco, I believe is his name. He's another top wideout out of the state of Texas. He's committed to Clemson, and Dabo Swinney. So it just makes you kind of think, what is Oregon's angle in all of this when it comes to managing your official visits? Because we saw in the spring that guys were starting to lock in their official visits, and then June 23rd, this weekend that we're in right now, quickly became one of those top weekends that we were going to have our eyes on. So I think that the official visit strategy makes a lot of sense when you just look at what history has shown us. If Oregon's able to, convert this momentum with these visits into something bigger on the trail, then that's really big. We've seen in past cycles, late June, early July, bunch of momentum, lots of guys hopping in. I think it was my first year on the job. I was covering the Elite 11 for the first time. It was in 2021. I want to say it was July 1st. I could be wrong, but Oregon got like 3 or 4 commitments all in one day. So that's exactly what Oregon's doing this weekend. If they didn't already do it, in past weekends, maybe picking up some silent commitments, or maybe having guys that are there on campus right now saying, "Hey, coach, I'm ready to hop in. Let's do this thing." But they're saying, "Hey, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's have you wait another couple of days. Let's have you wait another week, maybe even more. Who knows?" I'm not saying this is happening, but I think it would make a lot of sense because momentum is so crucial. And in today's era of recruiting, it is something that is so palpable. It's like you can almost feel it. You're looking at, these other schools across the country that are just on these massive heaters. And it's like, wait, I thought they just got somebody. Oh yeah, no, they have someone again. You're seeing it's not uncommon. Sometimes 3, 4, 5 commitments in one single day for a team, which is what sets up another interesting storyline around this weekend for Oregon, is that a couple other Pac-12 schools, I think I mentioned it yesterday, but I want to mention it again, USC and Stanford, they got some big recruiting wins and some big recruiting stretches in recent weeks and in recent days. So now Oregon's ready to hop in. They're not going to lag behind. And it's important to mention, too, Oregon has the number 8 class in the country, according to 247 Sports. And then you have, I think it's Stanford at 9 and USC at 10. So I think that Oregon's in a really good spot to, go on a run of their own if they're able to convert on some of these guys that were here last weekend and then certainly, this weekend. So back to the official visit strategy. I think I really like Oregon's strategy, and I think it's honestly the more widely used strategy. So it's not really, I don't think it's anything that's specific to Oregon, but you bring in all these top guys for official visits during the summer. And then more often than not, they're kind of, if Oregon does their job right, you bring them, you've already brought them in for a couple of unofficial visits, and then you bring them in for this official visit and you're looking to seal the deal, close things down. That's another thing that I think we should keep an eye out for this weekend, or maybe through the rest of the month. What Oregon verbal commits that come to take visits are, they come back, they see it, and they kind of remind themselves, yep, this is home for me. I don't want to have to deal with this anymore. I want to shut my recruitment down. I just want to focus on my senior high school football season. That's another thing that you got to watch this weekend. But when you're just looking at things from a timeline perspective, I think that it makes sense for Oregon to bring in a lot of their top targets and commits for visits during the June window, because if Oregon plays all their cards right and they're able to do everything, if they play all their cards right, they're going to have, I'd say, between 80 and 85% of this 2024 class locked up by the time the season starts. Because you have, this June 23rd weekend, that's a huge weekend. You have the spring game, which was huge, took a really big step forward, and a lot of these recruitments. And you got Moga in the fold from the spring game, and a couple other guys that are escaping me. But then you also have this weekend, and then you have Saturday Night Live, which I'm assuming they're going to have. They have that every year, coming out of the dead period towards the end of July. So you have all of these opportunities to, knock these visits out of the park and, hopefully get your top guys in the fold. And then the season comes around, you're able to focus on the on-field product. And then some of those top tier guys that want to draw those recruitments out. And then you're able to keep going into 2025, because as crazy as it sounds, a lot of schools are already picking up 2025 commits, and Oregon already has 2, which I think is tops in the Pac-12, although that's not saying very much because it's only 2 guys, right? But looking at, you're already seeing quarterbacks come off the board. So you got guys like Achilles Smith Jr. out of San Diego Lincoln, that have been top guys for Oregon in that 2025 class. So, and then you also have the early signing period. I think we could see some guys take officials, delayed officials, or maybe even last minute unofficials later on in the season, in December, to make their last pitch before the early signing period, and get those guys like Mateo Uiagalelei who signed and announced his commitment during the early signing period, or flip guys like an Austin Novosad. So that all kind of goes into the official visit strategy, and I think it's really interesting. I don't think that Oregon wants to have a ton of OVs during the season because it's just a lot to juggle. And it's not necessarily an advantageous position to put yourself in. But you also have, schools that have really, really good home game environments. Like if you wanted to have a guy at Death Valley at Clemson or LSU or Penn State for a whiteout game and then use your official visit then, I think that there are some situations here and there where you can kind of mix and match and see what makes the most sense for your team, for that prospect, for that recruit. And I think that kind of helps make it make sense. All right, I'm going to get a little bit of water, and then we're going to get into some mailbag. So hope you guys are excited for that. All right, so we got some questions here. First one comes from Bud Everts. How are the recruiting rankings calculated, given the number of recruits, ratings of the recruits, etc.? Well, this is an interesting question, and I don't know the answer exactly because I've never been involved with or worked with rankings, but I've been covering recruiting for a while now. So I think I'm going to try to give my best 2 cents. I think that they take into account a variety of things. They take into account, in my opinion, I think they probably weigh size and speed. Or height and weight to some degree, measurables that you take at camps. So I think they take measurables into account. I think that they take camp performances into account. I think that's a big one. When you're going against top guys in the area, obviously game film is really, really big. And, the caliber of competition that you're going against, I think that factors into it. I think, where a guy stands with regard to or in comparison to other guys at his position or even just in his state, is this a guy who is such a standout talent that you just don't see this kind of a player coming from, whatever place very often, or maybe, he can do a lot of different things. Maybe he's better on defense versus on offense, whatever it is. Sometimes you have those athletes that are so good, you can't even figure out what side of the ball to play them on. I think that there are some very unique aspects with all of that. I think you also have to look at the amount of quality players at a position. Is a position super oversaturated and you have a bunch of really good guys, or is it a class that's a position that's top heavy and there's only 5 or 6 blue chip quarterbacks or whatever it is. So those are some of the things that I think you take into account. I think you look at stats. I think you look at. I wonder if they take into account the ability to stay healthy, because what is that saying? The best ability is availability. Maybe that sounds a little short-sighted and it probably shouldn't be used for recruiting rankings, but kind of an interesting thing just to throw out there if you're just looking at the bigger picture with things, right? So I think that's an interesting one. I'm trying to think of what else. Yeah, caliber of competition, quality of competition. I think that plays into it when you're looking at recruiting rankings. And that's why you see so many of these schools like or states, California, Texas, Florida, that have so many quality schools put out a lot of seriously talented guys. So I think that's kind of what goes into the rankings. But like I said, before I answered the question, I'm not super sure because I myself have never worked with rankings. We got Eric here. He said, saw Max put in a prediction for Elijah Rushing today. Yes, sir. That was definitely kind of the big development of the day. I'm not the first guy to put in that prediction for Elijah Rushing, but kind of in a similar way to my Dylan Williams prediction. I thought it was time. I've kind of had that gut feeling for a while, and it's not a perfect science by any means, but I think that Oregon's just had so much momentum for rushing that I don't see another school coming in, and at least from the ones that I talked about, and going above and beyond and winning out ultimately. We have LFBP fishing. Can the football season arrive already? Man, that's how I feel. I feel like the football season, you wait for it for so long, and then you're in the summer, and then you have the two-a-days, and you have fall camp, and then you have media day. Not going to be able to make it to media day this year, unfortunately. I'm going to be traveling again, so that's a bummer. But it's going to be here before long. I think since I moved to LA, to Long Beach, I think that I've been able to navigate the off season a little bit better because I've been able to go to, camps and showcases and stuff. And that's definitely helped me personally get through the off season because as aside from the dead period or silent period, there's really no off season when it comes to recruiting, which is why I love it because there's always something to talk about. There's always a new guy. There's always, rankings and, events and stuff. So I definitely feel you on waiting for the football season to arrive. Just want it to be football season already. I was in the Northwest this past week in Spokane for a wedding. Got to go back to Gonzaga where I went to college before I went to Oregon. So I think that I really miss the Northwest, and I got to get back for an Oregon game for sure, no doubt about it. We got Up to Sco is here in the live stream with a bunch of different emojis. So the Up to Sco is excited. Thanks for the live stream, Max. No problem. Glad you got to stop by, and hopefully you're still here. Talk some Ducks and check out the live stream. Miguel Cruz, 2025. Oh, there we go. 2025 5-star safety DJ Pickett put a photo that he is in Eugene visiting. Yeah, I don't know too much about DJ Pickett, admittedly. So I think we can talk a little bit about him here. Sharing my screen. So DJ Pickett is a 5-star safety, 6'2", 170 pounds, according to 247 Sports. Has 37 offers. Number 7 player in the country. According to the 247 Sports composite, number 1 safety and the number 2 player in the state of Florida, coming out of Tampa, Florida from Zephyr Hills High School. It looks like, this is a great visit because it's one of those guys that he's from Florida, which is, I guess, Oregon's pipeline state in 2025 with Chavez, Sandman, Thompson, the offensive lineman from Melbourne, Florida, already committed. And then you also have Dallas Wilson from the Tampa area. He's a wide receiver that's committed to Oregon in the 25 class. I was hoping I would see him playing for the Legends at OT7 last week, or 2 weeks ago, last week, I think, but I didn't see him out there. So DJ Pickett, I admittedly don't know a whole lot about this guy, but I think Oregon needs to keep going for those elite DBs. And then if you can get a guy on campus of his caliber early on in his recruitment, before long, the 2025s are going to be on the clock. So you got to keep working and get these guys in early. We got a question here from Brenson Stroman. I think that's my guy Bistro over on Twitter. I'm not completely sure, but I think so. His question or comment says Simmons or Breland or both. So this is an interesting one. You're talking about 5-star Duncanville edge rusher Colin Simmons, and then 5-star modern day Santa Ana modern day defensive lineman Aiden Breland. I think right now, there's just so much momentum for Texas with that Colin Simmons recruitment. They're not going to let top talent out of the Lone Star State go without a fight. So I'm not saying that he's going to go to Texas, but I wouldn't be surprised if he ultimately ends up there. So I think right now I would probably feel more confident about Aiden Breland. He's in Eugene right now for his official visit. Recently took official visits to Miami, Georgia, and then I also want to say Texas A&M got an official visit. So I would probably feel more confident saying Breland, especially because the Ducks already have some momentum at Mater Dei with Jack Ressler hopping in the fold, the wide receiver from Mater Dei in the 24 class. Also pursuing Nate Frazier, one of the top running backs, probably the top running back on the West Coast, also out of Mater Dei. Then you have Brandon Baker out of Mater Dei, number 1 offensive tackle in the country. I put my prediction in for Oregon to land him. He just whittled things down to 10, so he's taking that recruitment real slow. But I think that Oregon probably leads for Brandon Baker, even though he's taking some official visits. I think I saw he went to Texas the other day. So all that said, I think when you look at the guys that Oregon's going after at Mater Dei, I talked about the episode yesterday about how USC is trying to get a pipeline at St. John Bosco. I think Oregon's pipeline will be to modern day, it looks like, in this 2024 class. So I feel more confident about Breland just because he seems like there's a little bit more room to assert themselves in his recruitment. And then Tuioti, Dan Lanning, and Tosh Lapoy have just done an awesome job creating that family environment, that family feel in Eugene is what Breland told me when I last talked to him. All right, what do we have here? Up to Sco says, you think we made ground with Simmons? Luke Moga dropped a cryptic, oh my God, on Twitter. Who do you think he was referring to? Excuse me. And blue chips, question mark. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe when you look at that tweet, it's so funny how with recruiting, we're at the point where we're deciphering tweets and trying to figure out what tweets might mean. When it comes to recruiting developments, it just shows how hungry this Oregon fan base is for recruiting info. So I guess it helps me. But I think you have to look at guys that were on campus when Moga was on campus. I'm trying to think of who else was in town that weekend. I think that Elijah Rushing was supposed to be there. I'm not sure they were actually there at the same time. But Nate Frazier was also there during that weekend, and I think Kingston Lopa was there during that weekend. So I'm guessing that maybe he was talking about Elijah Rushing. If I had to take a guess, that would obviously support my prediction. But he doesn't have a commitment timeline right now. I think the last thing that Rushing told me, from what I can remember, is committing towards the end of the summer or like in the early stages of the football season. So I don't think. I guess I would have thought that they made up ground with Colin Simmons, but these predictions to Texas from the On3 network definitely make me question that a little bit. I mean, I know that I was feeling in a decent spot, but he's never really been a major priority for them. And then, like I said, Texas and LSU were always heavily involved there. So we'll have to see. Ron with the question, any tight ends offered this weekend? See, here's the interesting thing about the tight end position. Oregon already has 2 commits at tight end with AJ Pugliano from Medford. No, is it Medford? Gosh, I'm having a brain fart. Let me see. Okay, yeah, from North Medford, AJ Pugliano, and then Jackson Ford from Melissa, Texas. Those guys are already committed to Oregon, but I don't think that Oregon's done at tight end. That's kind of a little bit of what I've been told, from some sources around the program out there in Eugene, that they're not done at tight end, which is kind of interesting. But at the same time, it's not that surprising when you consider how, they didn't necessarily, things didn't really go according to plan in 2024 or 2023, excuse me, especially after the transfers of Maliki Matavao and Cam McCormick. So if we're talking about more guys at tight end, I think that Roger Saliapaga from Orem, Utah is a guy to keep an eye on. He's been to Oregon a couple times. I think he was there for the spring game, 6'4", 194 pounds, number 21 tight end in the country, and number 3 prospect in the state of Utah. I think that he's a guy to keep an eye on here in the 24 class as far as who they might be able to add to that tight end room under Drew Maringer. But I don't know a whole lot about the tight end spot. I think that's one that kind of tends to fly under the radar and admittedly is one I need to look into a little bit more. Okay, yeah. Brady had a question here about Roderick Pleasant, one of the fastest in history. He ran 100 well in Southern California. Is he a solid duck? Yeah, I think Miguel helped him out here in the comments. But yeah, Roderick Pleasant is enrolled at Oregon. I think it looks like everybody that wasn't already enrolled as an early enrollee has arrived in Eugene. So that's exciting news, just getting the rest of those 2023 signees on campus. I know Roderick Pleasant was running for something. Maybe it was nationals for track as he wrapped up his senior season at Sarah, but it looks like he's all good to go. Eric Patterson said, man, if we get Rushing, Breland, and Simmons and Brandon Baker, it could take the program to the next level. Yeah, I don't think that they're going to get all of those guys. I mean, Simmons is the one that I feel the least confident about. But, Rushing and Baker, I think, are incredibly realistic options for Oregon at this point. And then Breland is a guy that I think Oregon has some work to do with just because of the caliber of talent, 6'6", 290. But I think that he's said all the right things about Oregon. And I like where Oregon's at right now because they already have so many solid pieces in the fold. And then a lot of the big names that I think we're waiting to see if they hop in are some of those 5-star caliber guys, are those needle mover type of guys. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised if Elijah Rushing is the first 5-star to hop in the fold for Oregon in 2024, and then things just take off from there. All right, let's see. What else do we have here? Dang, we're getting some good questions. I can't get to all of these, but I'll try. My computer's lagging a little bit, of course. Up to SCO, we need Nate Frazier to lock in too. Yeah, Nate Frazier is an interesting recruit. He's one of my favorite guys that I've covered since I moved to Southern California, out of Mater Dei. He's another really, talented guy in this class, and he's really been Carlos Laughlin's main target when it comes to running backs in the 2024 class. So when you're looking at Nate Frazier, it's kind of looking like a 3-team, maybe even a 2-team battle. You have Oregon, Georgia, and Alabama. I took official visits to Alabama and Oregon this month. I think he was also in Athens for an unofficial with the Bulldogs. So that's an interesting development to keep track of. Is when does his official visit to Georgia come, and what's his commitment timeline looking like? I can never really get a good answer when I ask him about his commitment timeline. Granted that now we're in summer, it might be a little bit harder to get in contact with him, see him in person. But I think coming out of that official visit, I think that Oregon did a really good job. You saw the photos with Carlos Laughlin and Bucky Irving. So, I will say that I heard some smoke about, Georgia being in a really, really good spot and maybe even being the team to beat for Nate Frazier while I was out at the Elite 11 and OT7 last week. So just some whispers and, some smoke that I had to put out there. I mean, I can't verify that necessarily. But it's worth mentioning since we're talking about Nate Frazier. But Nate Frazier, Jason Brown Jr., and Dejon Riggs are the main guys that Oregon's looking at here for running back in the 2024 class. Dejon Riggs should be on campus for his official visit this weekend. Christian Clark out of Arizona just committed to Texas. And then you also had Texas got that other guy, but I can't remember what his name is. Give me just a second. Jarrett Gibson. Yeah, Jarrett Gibson committed not to Oregon, to Texas out of IMG today. So that was pretty big. They got Christian Clark and Jarrett Gibson wrapped up in the 2024 class. And then you also mentioned Justin Williams here. I think that's kind of a similar deal. It looks like it's an Oregon versus Georgia battle for Justin Williams, with Alabama also in the mix. So crazy to see all this rollover, all this carryover in the 24 class. But I think that Justin Williams is definitely a priority target for Oregon. He took his official visit this month, but you have Kamar Matudi, who's on campus right now, a linebacker in the 24 class, taking his official visit. Braden Platt, another linebacker out of Washington in the 24 class. He's taking his official visit right now. And then you also have Dylan Williams out of Long Beach Poly. He took his official visit to Oregon earlier this month. So I think that Justin Williams is a guy that Oregon would love to add. But seems like they might be fading just a bit, but I'm not super confident on that one. So don't quote me on that. We're still rocking and rolling on the Ducks Dish podcast. Make sure you guys hit that like button for me and subscribe to the channel. Trying to hit 2.25K. I feel like I've been at 2.24 for a while. So always trying to up it and, keep growing the channel. All right. We have another one from Bud Everts. Says, Max, how big of a factor are guys who are already committed, especially QBs, e.g. Moga and Van Buren, in recruiting more players? Yeah, I think that it's a huge deal. Having committed guys on campus for these visits is really, really meaningful, because they're able to have conversations with uncommitted recruits, have conversations with their families, and then the committed guys bring their families with them, and they'll say, hey, this is the vision that we see from Dan Lanning. This is why we're okay sending our son to come play here. And then you have, I get sidetracked by these comments. That's why the live streams are hard sometimes. That they're able to kind of share the vision and why they have the faith to commit to Oregon and commit to Dan Lanning and this coaching staff. So I think that it really helps. And then especially if you're looking at, Jeremiah McClellan, he's in the comments right now. He's getting mentioned in the comments. Having Michael Van Buren on campus, along with Jordan Anderson, who's getting mentioned here. I think having those guys on campus for this official visit, where Oregon's really looking to close the deal with Jeremiah McClellan after losing a commitment from Tyser Denmark, who officially flipped to Penn State earlier this week. I think that's definitely one of the biggest recruits that Oregon has their eye on this weekend with regard to a guy that they really want to close on and ultimately land a commitment from. So I think that if you have the guys that are committed on campus during these visits, I think they play a huge role in recruiting more players. And Michael Van Buren's been a huge vocal recruiter since he committed to Oregon. Jordan Anderson has also been a huge, huge recruiter for the Ducks here in 2024. All right, we got another. We got a question. This was kind of already asked earlier, but I'll circle back around on it. B503 asks, "What's your feel on Aiden Breland?" Yeah, I think that it's hard to say if Oregon leads in that one. I think that it's both a good and bad thing that they're getting what might be the last official visit. It's hard to say these are going to be last official visits for some guys unless they really diagram their schedule, because they can take more than 5 official visits now. But from his recent stretch of official visits, this is the last one he's taking. So I think that kind of helps them, depending on how close he is to making a decision. Maybe he'll take some more visits before the season starts up. But I think that this is a guy that kind of looked unrealistic at one point for Oregon, and he's looking more realistic now in the 2024 recruiting class. So hopefully I can get an interview with him after this visit. But I think that, Oregon has a shot, definitely has a shot for Aiden Breland. I can say that. Question from Eric: between McClellan and Gatlin Bear, who's more likely to commit to the Ducks? Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, you have 2024 wide receiver Jeremiah McClellan out of St. Louis, Missouri Christian Brothers, and then you have Gatlin Bear out of Burley, Idaho, Burley Senior High School. Gatlin has made a name for himself as one of the fastest players in the country, fastest athletes. At one point he beat Roderick Pleasant in I think it was a 60-meter. But either way, ridiculous speed. I think that right now I haven't gotten a super solid feel on the Gatlin Bear recruitment, but I think that Michigan has a lot of momentum there in that recruitment. I think that someone told me a long time ago that I think the Burley coach already had a guy that he had sent to Michigan at one point, a player that he had produced and developed, and he went to Michigan. So maybe you see some familiarity there, some carryover there, and Bear could be going to Ann Arbor. But I would probably say that I think Jeremiah McClellan is the guy that I feel more likely to commit to Oregon right now. I don't think that Bear is the guy that they have the more momentum for right now. I think it's Jeremiah McClellan, and the timing of the visit is pretty significant for McClellan because I think this is his last visit, his last official visit. And he might be getting back out to Mizzou after this, but he's waiting for his mom to figure out what date he wants to commit. But it sounds like that one could be winding down. Oregon's in the thick of it with LSU, Ohio State as well for Jeremiah McClellan. NE has a question. Will Oregon get 5 stars at all 3 levels of the defense? Oof, that is not an easy feat. Not an easy feat at all. I mean, if you're talking about the trenches and the defensive line, I think you can say yes as of right now if we're operating off of my Elijah Rushing prediction. And then if you're looking at the second level, I think that, with the linebackers, Justin Williams is your most likely 5-star linebacker that you're still in the running for. But that's going to be a super tough battle, going against, your Alabamas and your Georgias, right? I'm trying to think of what other, I don't even know if Oregon's still going after any other 5-star linebackers. I think that's the only one, Justin Williams. So that's pretty tough, unless you're Alabama or Georgia or maybe Clemson. So I don't think that they're going to get him at all 3 levels of the defense. For corner or the secondary, I thought for a while that they were going to stay involved with Peyton Woodyard, but I don't think that. I feel like I'm feeling better about his commitment to Georgia. And if he doesn't go to Georgia, I think he'll end up at SC, the St. John Bosco safety. So I think your best bet for a 5-star player right now for Oregon in the secondary is probably Kobe Black out of Waco, Texas, Connolly High School. He was on campus this past weekend. But Texas is past week, whatever it was recently. He's a 5-star corner in 24. He was on campus recently, and Oregon's trying to throw their hat in there, but I think they have a lot of ground to make up, and that's going to be a tough battle for them to win. So as great as that would be, I don't think Oregon's going to get 5 stars at all 3 levels of the defense, but would love to be proven wrong there. That'd be very fun to cover. Up the Sco says, Wrestler and Breland are out here this weekend. We're going to try and get Pelham, but we probably have a better chance with McClellan. I'm unsure why Pelham wouldn't want to play for the Ducks when his uncle was a coach. Yeah, there was a little bit of smoke or rumor that I heard that Ryan Pelham had canceled his visit to Oregon. I wasn't able to confirm that, so that is not confirmed at this time. But what I can tell you is this, he narrowed his recruitment down to Oregon and SC. I put my prediction in for SC. Especially because, USC is relevant and good again. Lincoln Riley puts out really good wide receivers, and he's definitely trying to put up a fence around those top skill guys in Southern California and LA. They already got Xavier Jordan from Sierra Canyon, and I think that's definitely going to be an appeal for Ryan Pelham playing alongside him. Also, staying close to home, playing in front of family, that's definitely a big factor as well. So I think that, it's the full court press for Jeremiah McClellan. That's the guy that Junior Adams wants now in 2024. Bud says, Hugh and Spencer McLaughlin are duck-tastic when you team up on a podcast. Yeah, no, love Spencer, love doing shows with him. He actually asked me to come on his show last week, but I wasn't able to because I was out of town. So got to get back on his show. We got Mikey G in here. Let's go. What's up, Mikey G? Longtime listener. Let's see. Okay, I think I got time for maybe one more question. See me on the big screens talking about just saw a crystal ball for Texas for Colin Simmons. Yeah, I talked a little bit about that earlier on in the show. So we got our Colin Simmons update in today's episode. Aaron Scott Jr. ? By Up the Sco. Yeah, I think that Aaron Scott Jr. is really one of 3 top targets for Oregon at corner right now in the 2024 class. Aaron Scott Jr. is working from a top 5 of Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, Tennessee. Oh, man. Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, Tennessee, and Penn State. That was the other one that was in the mix for him. So a lot of Big 10 schools, And then Ohio State just landed Bryce West, who was a top Oregon cornerback target. Oregon was in the top schools there, but Bryce West was down to Ohio State and Michigan. And, kind of saw that one coming. The top players in Ohio usually stay and play for the Buckeyes. Ryan Day not letting a top guy get out of the state like that, although they did lose the top running back in the state to Michigan this cycle, I think. Can't remember his name. But Aaron Scott Jr. is one. You also have Sione Lauluea the third. Hopefully I'm saying his name right, from College of San Mateo. He's 6'4", 185, 190 pounds, number 1 JUCO player in the nation. He's in Eugene right now for his official visit. So that's the other guy that you're looking at. And you also have Chris Johnson II, Chris Johnson Jr. Out of Aledo, Texas. He took his official visit to Oregon this past week, was in Eugene twice in the month of June. So if Oregon gives him the green light, I would not be surprised if he jumps in the fold. You got schools like Arkansas and Arizona State also in the mix there. But I think that if Oregon wants Chris Johnson II, I think they could definitely close the deal there. And then you also have Kobe Black, who I mentioned, and then Selman Bridges out of Temple, Texas as well. I think he was on campus, another Texas standout. So that's kind of what things are looking like at corner. Thomas Allen with a really good question. Who is your favorite uncommitted target? Man, this is an interesting one because I've gotten to, meet a lot of guys and I just have fun, interviewing these guys and, getting to tell part of their stories and, seeing them interact on the 7-on-7 circuit with their friends and everything. Nate Frazier is an awesome guy. I really like him. Dylan Williams is an awesome guy. I've talked to him a lot. Braden Platt is one of my quote unquote favorite recruits. He's super, super interesting to watch cover, cover him. He's out of Yelm, Washington, and he's just twitchy, man. I mean, Braden Platt, what is he listed at these days? Braden Platt is listed at 6'2", 240. So, and this is like, he plays running back for Yelm, and he's got some burners. He's got a decent top gear, but he is just a super, super athletic guy. Also does shot put. He was in Eugene for some shot put, doing some track stuff. So he might be one of the most athletic linebackers on the trail. I also like Kamar Matudi quite a bit. He's a great guy to interview out of Valley Village, California, Campbell Hall High School. He's on campus for his official visit with Oregon right now. And he's always fun to talk to. He's like 6'3", 230, super athletic guy. So those are some of my favorite guys that I've gotten to cover so far. In the 24 cycle that kind of come to mind. Let's see here. All right, this might be the last question, so we'll see. I'm getting a little tired here. If we don't pick up big time commits within the next week or two, would you be worried, Max? I don't really know. I mean, I think that's a good time frame to look at, because I think that early July is also a time when you could really see a lot of commits. So I think that I'd be pretty shocked if we don't see a commit in the next week or so for Oregon. So I don't know if I would be worried necessarily, but I would definitely be intrigued and curious as to why that is the case, if that is the case. So I think that I have all the confidence that Oregon's going to be able to close on some of the guys that are in town this weekend, and just getting excited to see who's going to be the next person to quack and hop in the fold here in the 2024 recruiting class for Oregon. So that's going to do it on today's episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. However you're tuned in, whether you're here on YouTube in the live stream, I think we peaked at like 55 people, which is awesome. Really appreciate your guys' support and taking your time out of your day to tune in. Goes for you guys on the podcasting side as well. So make sure you guys lock in with me on social media. I'm at Torres Sports on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm at Oregon Football Max Torres on YouTube. Go ahead and check out my latest written content over on ducksdigest.com. Share the show with your friends, with your family, and with other Duck fans. And until next time, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast.